Hey everyone, this is Mr. Escamilla, and today I'm going to be guiding you through GMetrix Practice Exam 1 for Adobe After Effects. Go ahead and click Start under Practice Exam 1. And you want to make sure that on this screen, you change the mode to training mode and then click Start Test. Training mode is going to give you access to a help button, which you'll see is quite helpful as you go through this practice exam. So this first question tells us to match each license definition with the correct license icon. The human icon is a license that gives credit to the author, so you need to drag that there. This equal sign icon prohibits changes. This money icon prohibits commercial use. That means people can't make money off of your creation if you indicate that your graphic video has that license. And then share with same terms means that if someone uses your media, they have to share their newly created media with the same terms that your graphic had. And so that should be the correct answer, and we'll move on to the next question. This question says, scale down the blue square shape layer to 50% and rotate it 45 degrees. And so step one here, we're supposed to open the blue square shape layer drop down, which is right here. You have a little drop down box, and it says to open the transform drop down, which is right there. It says, we will change the scale from 100 to 50%. So right here where it says scale, type 50 and push enter. Because this has this little link, both of the height and the width will change proportionally. And then the rotation, which by default is set to 0 degrees, we're going to change to 45 degrees. And you'll notice that little blue shape rotates. And that should be the correct answer for task 2. Moving on to task 3, it says change the parent of the is precious text layer to the null 1 layer. So this is a pretty easy question. You're supposed to, I like this second option here, clicking and dragging the is precious text layer parent pick whip, which is this little icon that you see along these layers. We need to move the is precious text layers pick whip to the null 1 layer. So all you got to do is drag this to null 1, and you'll notice that this changes. Alternatively, you could click on this drop down and click null 1. And you need to make sure that that is on the is precious layer. And now this is a child layer and will follow whatever this null 1 layer decides to do. You can go ahead and click next, and that should be the correct answer. Moving on to the next task, we are taking a look at adding a camera layer with the 50mm preset and turn on depth of field. And to change the aperture to 500 pixels, I'm going to go ahead and go through this with you all. It says in the layer menu, hover over New and select Camera. Now it says ensure that the preset is set to 50mm, which mine is already. And you need to ensure that the unit of measurements is set to pixels. And then click OK. And you'll notice we added successfully a parent layer here. Now it says in the camera layer drop down, we need to open the camera options. So if you click here, there's some camera options. And it says to toggle the depth of field to on. So right here, depth of field is currently off. Go ahead and change that to on. And then it says next to aperture, enter 500. So right here is the aperture. We'll change that to 500, and that should be correct for this question. We can go ahead and click next. Moving on to question 5. This is a tricky one for a lot of my students. We're supposed to export a single frame from the timeline in PNG sequence format to the After Effects folder, which is in a very convoluted, hard to get to place. I will show you how to get there. And so let's go ahead and take a look. First of all, with this timeline selected, we need to click on the composition menu at the top, go to Save Frame As, click File. And on this screen, I've learned just click Save because this next help step doesn't make sense because we got that pop-up. It says here next to click the blue text next to Output module. We'll change the save spot here in just a moment. But here's the blue text next to Output module. We're going to click on that. And right here is where you can change the format to PNG sequence. And then you can go ahead and click OK. Now it says click the blue text next to Output to. Here's the Output to. And so wherever you saved earlier doesn't matter because now is the time where we're going to save it to the spot that the program wants us to. It says here next in the help step, step 7, to open the After Effects folder in the GMetrix templates folder as noted in the path up here. It says for Mac computers, navigate to /library application support. And so the main thing most of my students needed to know is how do you get to just starting with library? And so in order to do that, you're going to click on the hard drive. Mine happens to be called GPH's Mac Studio. Go ahead and click on whatever your hard drive is called. Click Macintosh HD and voila, you are now able to follow this path. Almost. You can go ahead and click Library, click Application Support. Notice that that's next. Then you can click on Adobe and then CEP, Extensions. And here's the part they kind of messed up. It tells you next to click geometrix.lida.adobe.aftereffects. And when you do that, there is no GMetrix templates folder next. So we're not going to do that. I actually noticed that the GMetrix templates folder is right here. And voila, you now have the After Effects CC Lida folder. Now, the last thing you need to do is up here at the top, you need to delete the text before .png. And it tells us to save this as water PSA in all caps. Make sure it looks exactly like this. And then you can go ahead and click Save. And you do have to click Render. If you don't click Render, you will get this question wrong. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and click Next, and you will have successfully answered question number 5. Moving on to number 6, we are adding a new shape layer and drawing a rectangle in the composition window. I actually like this OR step more. It says with nothing selected, use the rectangle tool, which is right here, to just draw a rectangle. That is the easiest question. Draw a rectangle, click Next, boom. You are on your way to task 7. This next task tells us to keyframe the opacity of train.mp4 from 100% in the first frame to 0% in the last frame. Once again, this is a pretty easy question. It says ensure that the time frame is set to 0, which it is by default. In the train layer, open the transform box, which is right here. And here is the opacity. This is what we're wanting to animate. And what we're going to do is click on this little stopwatch to set a keyframe with the opacity at 100%. And then it says on the last frame, we want the opacity to go down to 0. So we're going to drag our time marker all the way to the last frame, which in my case is 1923, pretty much at 20 seconds. And you'll change the opacity once your time frame marker, your playhead is at this time. You'll change this to 0. And you'll know you did this correctly if you see 2 diamonds here. That means you have 2 keyframes. And you should notice this subtle change in the opacity from 100. And over the course, very slowly over 20 seconds, it will fade out down to 0. And so I'm not going to let the whole thing play, but notice it fades out to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and click next, and that should be the correct answer. We're going to go ahead and take on task 8. This wants us to make a star-shaped mask on the train.mp4 layer and change the mask expansion to 50. So with this composition selected, we need to click on the rectangle tool up here. Let me close this out. We need to click on this up here to reveal these sets of tools. You're going to click on this star tool because that's what it's wanting us to make, is a star-shaped mask. And a mask is something that is hiding part of a layer. In this case, we're going to only show part of this train through the shape of a star, and the rest of the video is going to be hidden. You'll see what that looks like in just a minute. So now that we have this selected, we need to make sure that the train layer is selected. And let me tell you why. If you don't have this train layer selected and you just draw, this is just going to draw stars as shapes, but we don't want a shape. What we want is a mask. And to have a mask, you have to have this layer selected. So with the train selected, we are going to click and draw a star, kind of like that. And what I did actually was I held shift so it would grow from the middle. But the program won't be too picky. As long as you draw a star, you'll notice that we now have a mask here in the timeline. And what we have to do in order to make the second part true, changing the mask expansion to 50, you need to click here, and voila, we have mask expansion. Change this from 0 to 50 pixels, and you'll notice the star becomes a little bit rounded. You can go ahead and click next, and that should be the correct answer for task 8. Moving on to task 9. This wants us to import a video clip called Ferris Wheel and use it to make a new composition. And we need to make the new composition with the name renamed footage, then change that composition's dimensions to 1920 by 1080. So what we'll do is we'll double click here in the empty space, and this brings us our import window. And I am already at the correct folder because I came here earlier, but if you're not, I'll recap how to get there. You have to click on GPH's Mac Studio, click Mac HD, go to Library, Application Support, Adobe, CEP, Extensions, GMetrix Templates, After Effects CC Lita. Please, GMetrix, if you're watching this video, please make this a whole lot shorter to get to. But I digress. Here is the Ferris wheel. And what we're going to do here is we have navigated to here. We're going to click there and click open. We have added the video clip to our project window. Now we are going to click composition and click new composition. And here in the composition name, it wants us to call this composition renamed footage. And you need to make sure you put a capital R and a capital F, just like it says here. And then it says, if needed, change this to 1920 by 1080. If yours isn't already 1920 by 1080, make sure you put that. And then click OK. And I believe that should be the correct answer. I feel like that video should have been in that composition, but it counts it as correct. However, the directions say use the Ferris wheel. I feel like I should have right-clicked the clip and selected make new composition. But hey, I followed the help directions. It counts it right. Let's go ahead and move on to task 10. Looking at task 10, it says to display the grid. If you don't know how to do that, it tells you right here. Click the Choose Grid and Guide Options button in the Composition window, which is right here, not the Composition menu. This is the Composition menu. This is the Composition window. And down here is the different buttons that will allow you to turn the grid on. Here's the, it's called the Choose Grid and Guide Options. We're going to click that and select grid. That will turn on the grid that they want us to turn on. And then it wants us to go to our preferences. And it says here, if you're on a Mac like I am, to click the After Effects CC menu, which is up here, and to go to preferences, which in the newest version of After Effects that I'm on, that has actually been renamed settings. So if you're clicking here and you're like, well, where the heck is preferences? That's renamed settings. So go ahead and click there. And it wants to click on grids and guides. And so go ahead and click that. You'll get this pop up. And we want to change the grid line every option to 400 pixels. By default here, at least it's currently set to 80. So I'm going to click 400 and then I'll click OK. And notice the amount of little squares we had changed. We'll go ahead and click next and move on to task 11. Here, we are told to trim the train MP4 layer using an in point at 1 second and an out point at 2 seconds. So if we look at the help options, we're supposed to double click the train MP4 layer to view it in the composition window. I've seen some people put in and out points here, but this actually wants us to trim the layer itself. So to do that, you're going to double click the train, and you'll know you're doing this right if you see the layer train as opposed to viewing the composition train. We are affecting the layer itself. Now it says move the time marker to 1 second. And so right here, I'm going to try to go to 1 second. And alternatively, you could just type here 100 and that'll go to 1 second. So we're at the 1 second mark now. And we're going to click on the Set Endpoint to Current Time button, which is this button right here. And now we're going to move the time marker to 2 seconds. So I'm going to click here, type 200. And we're going to put an out point here. What this does is this shortens the clip to start at the 1 second mark and end at the 2 second mark. So this is a very short clip now. This is just a 1 second clip. You'll notice it got shortened down here in the composition window. And I got that incorrect. Let me try that one more time. It says double click the train layer to view it in the composition window. Go to 1 second. Click the Set In Time marker, go to 2 seconds, click the Out, and that should be correct. If it's not, we will move on to the next question, and I will come back later to that question. I'm going to try one more thing, actually. I'm going to try, even though it tells us to click on the layer, I'm going to try it here in the timeline. Let me see, 1 second. I'm going to set a endpoint, and then I'm going to go to 2 seconds, and I'm going to set an out point. And I'm not sure why it's counting it wrong. This one should be correct. That's going to be counted wrong, I'm sure. Oh, y'all, it counted it right. I feel like that's crazy. I just edited it in the timeline, even though this tells us to affect the layer. We'll revisit that in class, but hey, we were able to get it right for our exam. All right. Back to a concept question. We are matching each icon to its corresponding layer. So this is the shape layer. Obviously, it has a star. The T is a text layer. I feel like you may not even need the help button for this. This little video clip icon is a footage layer. This light bulb means it's a light layer, kind of an advanced topic. And then this little camera icon obviously is a camera layer. Go ahead and click next and we'll move on to task 13. We are going to add the fade out slow preset to the don't waste it text layer at 15 seconds and add a fill color. So I'm going to click on this help button, go to the effects and presets panel, and I'm going to search for fade out slow. And there she is. And it says with the time marker at 15 seconds in the timeline, click and drag this preset to the don't waste it text layer. So first you have to go to the 15-second mark. I'm going to type 1500 to go to 15 seconds. That'll put me right here. And we are going to drag that preset to don't waste it once you're at that 15-second mark. And now you will notice that this text disappears, which is pretty cool. But we need to add a fill color. So we have two more instructions. This says in the don't waste it text layer dropdown, which if it tells you the dropdown, it's talking about here. We are supposed to open the text dropdown and click add, which is kind of hidden, but it's right here. And we're supposed to hover over property, then hover over fill color and select RGB. And notice now we have added a fill color. In this case, it's red. And this happens when this animation happens. So it's pretty cool, the animation we've created. It's white, and then as it disappears, it gets that fill color. And notice that happens at the exact same time. So we'll go ahead and click next, and that should be the correct answer for task 13. That is not the correct answer for task 13. Let's see what happened here. So for task 13, it says add the fade out slow preset to the don't waste it text layer. The fade out slow preset is right here in the effects and presets panel. And it says with the time marker at 15 seconds in the timeline, we need to drag the fade out slow to the don't waste it text layer, just like that. So now this will fade out. I'm going to go back to 15 seconds. And we are going to open the text dropdown for don't waste it. And we need to click add property, fill color, RGB. And it gets this red color. And it may have been counted wrong earlier, maybe because I moved my time. Maybe that didn't happen at 15 seconds. But no, it's not counting it as correct. So I'm going to try one more time. Maybe this will be like that other question. We'll get it eventually. So here we're supposed to add the fade out slow preset to the don't waste it text layer at 15 seconds. I feel like we've done this correctly. We're going to drag fade out slow. Then in the don't waste it text layer dropdown, it wants us to open the text dropdown and click add, The only place I see add is right here. And then it says hover over property, then hover over fill color, and select RGB. And so this should be the correct answer. If it doesn't count it right this time, I'm just going to go ahead and move on and tell y'all to skip this one. I don't know why I counted it right this time. You know, I think this might be an error. This time I kept my playhead at the 15-second mark. Notice I didn't play it, and it counted it right. So for you, as silly as that sounds, you may need to do that in order to get this question correct. If you notice something I did in that last third attempt that I didn't in the first two, let me know. I'd be curious to know maybe what I missed. Moving on to task 14, we are going to change the audio level. That means how loud the audio is of the faucet drip video clip to -5 decibels or dB. And we're going to mute jellyfish.mp4 and add the project to the render queue and change the file format to MP3. So we're doing quite a few things: lowering the volume, muting the volume of a clip, adding the project to get exported out, and changing the format that it's going to be exported out to MP3, which is an audio clip. So let's go ahead and get started. In the faucet drip layer dropdown, we are needing to open the audio panel here. And this is probably the easiest one here. We need to put -5 for the audio. That'll put -5 dB. Then click the mute icon on the jellyfish layer, which is right above the faucet drip. And here is the mute icon. You can just click on that little speaker icon and that should mute it. And then we're going to click File, go to Export, and then click Add to Render Queue. Now you're going to want to click on the blue text next to the output module, which is right here. And this will basically ask you what format you want this to be in. We are going to change the format from H.264, which is a video format, to MP3, which is audio only. You can go ahead and click OK, and this should be the correct answer for task 14. We'll go ahead and move on to task 15. We're halfway there. We are adding a vibrance color correction to the train.mp4 layer and changing the saturation to 100. So this says, with the train layer selected, click on the effect menu, hover over color correction, and select vibrance. So you may be tempted to go to the effects and presets, but we're actually going to the effect menu, going to color correction, and clicking vibrance, which is located down here at the bottom. Now it says either in the effect controls panel or the layer effects dropdown, change the saturation to 100. I think I'd rather just do it up here. Go ahead and change the saturation to 100, and you'll notice that the colors on this now pop a lot more. This is before, this is after. And now you can go ahead and click next, and that should be the correct answer for task 15. This is the easiest question so far, I think. It tells us to display the title action safe guides, then make all layers that are touching the title safe area invisible. So what you're going to do for this question is choose the grid and guide options, which we clicked earlier to turn on the grid. And what we're going to want to do this time is click this first option, the title action safe. And anything that's touching the title safe needs to be deleted or needs to be hidden or made invisible. And so the blue square, the yellow square are touching this line here, which is the title safe guideline. So what you have to do is just turn those off by clicking the eyeball icon right there. So you should only see the headphones, and that should be the correct answer for task 16. Task 17 says to pre-compose all of the text layers and name the new composition text. Make the new composition duration the same as the selected text layers. So we have a few text layers in here. We're going to select all 3 of them. And the way you can do that is by holding the first one, holding Shift and holding the last one, or alternatively, you can hold Command and click each of them one by one. You need to make sure you have all of them selected. Go to Layer, click Pre-Compose, which is here at the bottom. And then for the new name, you're going to type text. That's what this is going to be called. And then we need to select the Adjust Composition Duration to the time span of the selected layers. And then click OK. You'll now notice that all 3 of those text boxes are one layer. Instead of having 3 different text boxes, you now have them all combined here. You can go ahead and click Next, and that should be the correct answer for task 17. For task 18, we're changing the name of the train composition to travel and putting it into a folder named Scene 1. So in the project panel, we're selecting the train composition, not the train layer. There's 2. Which one is the train composition and which one is the train layer? Well, this says composition, this says MPEG, so we know this is the one we have to change. And so it tells us to change the name of it to travel. So the way you do that is make sure that this is selected, hit the return key on your keyboard and type travel. And then you can go ahead and push enter. Now, we're going to create a new folder by right-clicking in the project panel and selecting New Folder. And the name of this untitled folder should be called Scene 1. No space in between there. And if we read this again, it says change the name of the train composition to travel. We already did that, and put it into a folder named Scene 1. Well, we just made Scene 1, so all you got to do is drag that sucker into Scene 1, and voila, we have successfully put the travel composition into Scene 1, and you should be able to click Next, and that will be the correct answer for task 18. Moving on to task 19, we are changing the blending mode of the Is Precious text layer to color dodge, and so that's an easy question. Right here is precious. Right here, change this to color dodge. And you'll notice that the text changed here. Just to show you the difference, I'm going to show you this is before. And then when I changed it to color dodge, it combines with the background and it has a pretty cool blue color. Click Next. That should be the correct answer for task 19. We got just a few more questions left. We're on the last third part of the test. At 3 seconds, we need to add a marker to the timeline for the train.mp4 layer. So in order to do that, we're going to drag the current time indicator, or just type here 300. It'll go to the 3 second mark. And then it says in the layer menu, select the Add Marker button. And it says the layer menu, select the Add Marker button, or select markers, then add marker. At 3 seconds, add a marker to the timeline for the train.mp4 layer. Make the comment begin transition here. The marker button. Okay. Oh, I see. It says in the layer menu, select add marker, or in the layer menu, go to markers. I see. Sorry, I was a little confused there. At 3 seconds, you'll click layer markers, then click add marker. Notice it adds a little triangle marker right there. Now we're going to double click on that little triangle in order to put some details in here. And it says type begin transition here in the comment box. So you can type that with a capital B, begin transition here, and click OK. And now notice on the timeline we have that little comment. If you're ever working with a team and you need to leave your co-editor some comments, markers can be a good way to do that. Task 21, we need to solo the waves.mp4 layer so that it is the only visible layer when exporting. So this is really easy. All you got to do is know what the solo button looks like. On the waves layer, which is right here, click this solo button, and what that will do is make that the only layer that will show on the timeline. It essentially hides all the other layers except that one. You can go ahead and click next, and you should have task 21 correct. Moving on to task 22, we are applying a radial blur to the water text layer and animating the amount from 1000 to 0, starting at the first frame and ending at 2 seconds. And we're changing the type to zoom. So what you got to do here is you need to look up radial blur in the effects and presets. And we're going to drag the effect radial blur onto the water text layer. So I'm going to actually go here so you can see the effect of adding radial blur to the water text layer. And you'll notice it became a little blurry. It's actually a pretty cool effect. It looks ghost and haunted like. And what we're going to do is we're going to animate this starting at the first frame and ending at 2 seconds. So we need to set the time playhead here all the way to the very beginning. Make sure you are at 0 seconds. And in the effect controls panel, we're going to change the amount parameter, which is right here, from 10 to 1,000, which is a lot more than 10. Notice this almost looks invisible now. And we're going to turn on its keyframe by clicking the stopwatch icon next to here because we want to animate this. We want this to go from an insane high number slowly all the way down to 0. And so it's going to slowly change over time. So I'm going to leave this actually set to 1,000. And you're going to click on the stopwatch icon. Then you're going to go to 2 seconds. So right here in the timeline, you can type 200. That'll take you to the 2 second mark. And for the amount, hit 0 seconds. And you'll notice now it looks normal. So between the beginning of the timeline and 2 seconds, it's going to slowly move to that normal looking position. And if you want to see the keyframes in the timeline, you can actually hit the U key while the water layer is selected, and notice there's the effect we added and there's the radial blur that moves. We have to do one more thing, which is change the type to zoom. So over here, it's set to spin. We're actually going to change this to a different type of radial blur, a zoom type. And you'll notice now if we play this, looks a little bit different. You can go ahead and click next, and that should be the correct answer for task 22. Moving on to task 23, we are going to drag and drop filmography pre-production steps in the correct order. So first is you write a script. You can't do anything or film anything. The actors won't know what to say until you write a script. Then you create a storyboard, which is a thumbnail view of the movie or video you are creating. And then last but not least, you organize a shot list of the different types of camera shots that you want to see in your video. And we'll be moving on to task 24. We're going to add a zigzag to the blue square shape, change its ridges per segment to 10 and its size to 5. So we need to expand the blue square shape layer right here. And you are going to click add next to underneath, it's right next to content. It's pretty easy to miss. And you're going to select zigzag, which is here at the very bottom. So now this has a zigzag look around the rectangle. Now we're going to expand zigzag. So click here and we're going to input 10 for the ridges per segment. And mine is already set to 10 for ridges per segment. So I actually don't have to change anything. And then for the size, you need to make sure it's set to 5. Once again, mine is already set to 5. And so that should be the correct answer for task 24. Moving on to task 25. This says the following grid demonstrates which rule of composition. If you've had my class in the past, you better know that the answer is rule of thirds or I failed you as a teacher. This is the rule of thirds, which states that you want to put the most important elements where these intersecting lines are. In this case, it's the tree, and notice it hits both this top right and this bottom right set of intersecting lines. Which of the following statements regarding adjustment layers are accurate? And we need to choose 2. And these 2 are the ones that are accurate. Any effects applied to an adjustment layer affect all layers below it. That's going to be right here. And the other statement that's accurate is a mask can be used to apply an effect to only parts of underlying layers. And so that's going to be right here. The 2 that are not true are any effects applied to an adjustment layer affect all layers above it. That's not true. It's going to affect all the layers that are below that adjustment layer. And then the other one that's not true is masks and static cannot be animated to follow moving subjects. Task 27, in regards to keyframes and animation, which of the following correctly describes easy ease? And it wants us to choose 2. The 2 that are correct, it says here, easy ease is used to give the appearance of an object slowing down as it approaches a keyframe. So I want you to think of when you get in your car, it doesn't go from 0 to 60 in a millisecond. You have to slowly gear up to that. And so the 2 statements that are true is that easy ease is a quick automated animator preset. Easy ease can be applied to text objects. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the answers here. Let's see, which of the following? Choose 2. It cannot be applied to text objects. That's false, so don't click that one. It's a quick automated animation preset. That should be correct. And then it applies a consistent. It is used to give the appearance of slowing down as it approaches a keyframe. It's going to be these 2 right here. So the first one, it applies a consistent smooth animation across all keyframes is not true because ease runs at different speeds, so it's not a consistent speed. It's like a car. When you're speeding up, you go from 0 to 20 to 40 to 60. You slowly go up to that speed, and that's what easy ease is. A default keyframe is going to have a consistent speed from the first keyframe to the next keyframe. Task 28, it says which options are factors and images to include in a project for a target audience, desired goals of a client, demographic such as age, and purpose of so age of the audience would be correct, and purpose of a project are all factors in determining what images to use in a project. Your stylistic preferences don't matter if you're creating something for someone else, nor does a project from a competitor. You want to know what your client wants. Moving on to task 29. Which of the following options are available in the video section of the Adobe Media encoder export window? Those options are going to be frame rate, bit frame encoding, keyframe distance. And then we are on our last question. We need to import the road layer of the Photoshop document as footage. So in order to do that, we need to go File, Import, File, and you need to look for the road layer of, I believe, this car advertisement. And if you don't know how to get here, or if it isn't already here, you have to click on the computer, GPH's Mac Studio, or whatever your computer is called. Click Macintosh, Library, Application Support, Adobe, CEP, Extensions, GMetrix Templates, After Effects CC Lita, and then there is the car advertisement. And then here, we need to make sure it is set to footage, which it is typically by default. And then you can click Open. Notice it says, if you're on a PC, you'll click Import. On a Mac, you click Open. That's right here. And then it says in this next window, under Layer Options, you need to click Choose Layer and select Road in its drop down. Leave all other defaults. I do not see where it's telling me. Okay, for some reason this switched over for me to composition. That's why it wasn't the correct thing. This needs to be set to footage. And then right here, you can click Choose Layer, select Road, and leave all their defaults the same, and then you can click OK. And what that's going to do is it is going to import the road layer of the Photoshop document and only this road layer. You can go ahead and click Next, and that will be the end of your Adobe After Effects exam. You can go ahead and submit the test, and that should be a perfect score if you followed all of the steps in this video. I hope you all found this video to be helpful. If you did, hit that like button. You can also consider subscribing to the channel if you would like to see movie reviews, unboxing videos of home entertainment. That's typically what I post, but as an animation teacher, this video is here to guide my students who took the Adobe After Effects test today. And so it should have graded that. If not, I'll figure that out. But as you could see, it counted all of those correct. Thank you all so much for checking this out. I'll probably post exam 2 shortly. Until next time, this is Jason Escamilla from EskimoTV.net. Thank you all so much for checking this out.